14 years. Without a word, now they want me to save them. When I was 14, my world turned upside down. In one morning, my parents and younger brother disappeared from my life. They'd left with barely a goodbye, a few hastily scrawled words on a note left on the dining table. "We have to go. We'll be back for you soon." Days turned into weeks, and then months, but I never saw their car pull back into the driveway. I'd stand at the window sometimes, staring down the street, expecting to see them just as I'd always imagined them, smiling and apologetic, their arms open wide to welcome me back into their lives. But they didn't return. Eventually, I stopped waiting. My uncle stepped in, reluctantly taking me under his roof. I was always the silent one in the background, almost like a ghost that had been forced into his family. My uncle barely spoke to me, my cousins ignored me, and my aunt looked at me as if I were a burden she wished would disappear. No one ever said it directly, but I could feel it, sense it in the way they looked at me or left me out of family gatherings and dinners. A childhood cut short life with them was never easy. I learned quickly to keep to myself, to work hard at school, and to avoid needing anyone. I took on part-time jobs, earning what little I could to afford school supplies and clothes. The only things I could rely on were my own strength and my determination. Over time, the dreams of my family returning, of getting that apology, faded into the background. I graduated high school and put myself through college with scholarships and 3 jobs. No one showed up at my graduation. No family cheered as I accepted my degree, nor did they send congratulatory letters or calls. I was truly alone in that moment, but also filled with pride. I was living proof that I didn't need anyone to succeed. My family may have abandoned me, but I would never abandon myself. In time, I climbed my way up in the business world, eventually landing a role in a thriving company. I bought my own house, a beautiful, warm place filled with the love and care I'd never known growing up. This home was mine, a safe haven that I had earned brick by brick with my own 2 hands. I felt whole, strong, and capable, never needing to rely on anyone else. Then one day, everything changed. The call that changed. Everything. It was an ordinary Saturday morning, and I was just about to head out for a run when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, but the number was unfamiliar. Normally, I wouldn't have answered, but some instinct made me pick up this time. "Hello?" I said, expecting a telemarketer or a wrong number. "Hi, this is your mother." The voice on the other end was shaky, hesitant, as though she couldn't quite believe she was making the call. I felt like the ground had disappeared from beneath my feet. After all these years, my mother, was calling me, as if nothing had happened. My heart pounded, a strange mixture of excitement and resentment coursing through me. 16 years without a word, a letter, anything. And now she was calling? "We're back in town," she said, "and we'd like to see you. I know it's been a while, but we're still family, and we thought it was time to reconnect." She spoke like she was giving me a gift, as though her returning to my life was some sort of benevolent act. I agreed to meet them, but it wasn't because I felt any sense of obligation or excitement. I was curious to see the people who'd left me behind so easily, and expected me to welcome them back with open arms. The family reunion. We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe downtown. The moment I walked in, I spotted them, my mother, father, and my brother, who was now almost a stranger to me. They looked older, worn down by the years. My mother's face brightened when she saw me, but it was a strange brightness, something that seemed forced. "Darling, you look wonderful," she said, her voice warm but somehow hollow. I didn't return the sentiment. I just looked at them, taking in the faces I hadn't seen in years, trying to understand how they could sit there, smiling, as if they hadn't shattered my life. "We were hoping you'd be happy to see us," my father added, an uneasy smile on his face. It was clear they expected me to feel gratitude, relief, maybe even joy. Instead, all I felt was a cold detachment. I forced a smile, one that didn't reach my eyes. "It's been a long time," I replied, letting my words hang in the air, waiting for them to explain themselves. They exchanged glances before my mother cleared her throat. "Look, things were complicated back then. We didn't have a choice." I raised an eyebrow. "Didn't have a choice? You left me, alone, with nothing but a note." My father looked away, his face reddening, but my mother held her ground, the faintest hint of defensiveness creeping into her voice. "You don't understand. There were things going on that you couldn't possibly know about. We did what we thought was best for you." I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. Best for me? You thought abandoning a 14-year-old girl with no explanation was best for me? They fumbled, stammered, but didn't offer any real answer. That's when my brother, who'd been quiet all along, finally spoke up. "It wasn't easy for us either, you know," he muttered, looking at me with an air of entitlement that took me by surprise. "Oh, really?" I asked, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Must have been real tough, running off and starting a whole new life without me." Silence. They had no response, nothing that could justify what they'd done. But then, my father cleared his throat, his tone changing to something more businesslike. "We need your help," he said, his voice heavy. "We've fallen on hard times and, well, we thought maybe you could help us out, just until we get back on our feet." There it was, the reason for their sudden reappearance in my life. Not out of love or regret, but because they needed something from me. 16 years without so much as a birthday card, and now they expected me to be their safety net. I looked at them, my face impassive, though inside a storm was raging. "So, let me get this straight. You leave me for 16 years, ignore my existence, and now that you're in trouble, you want me to swoop in and save the day?" My mother's eyes filled with tears, but whether they were genuine or not, I couldn't tell. "We're your family," she said, her voice breaking. "We raised you. Surely you can understand." "Raised me," I interrupted, my voice hard. "You abandoned me. I had to build a life for myself from nothing. I survived without you. In fact, I thrived without you." They were silent, looking at me as though they were finally beginning to see the person I had become. I wasn't their little girl anymore. I was someone who had endured more than they could imagine, someone who had risen from the ashes they left behind. I stood up, grabbing my coat. "I don't owe you anything," I said calmly. "You made your choices and I made mine. I don't need you in my life. I built something beautiful without you, and I intend to keep it that way." As I walked away, I didn't look back. For years, I had imagined this moment, wondered what it would feel like to finally confront the people who had abandoned me. And now, as I left them behind, I felt nothing but a deep, satisfying sense of closure. They had expected me to beg, to plead for their love and approval. Instead, I showed them that I had moved on, that I was stronger than they'd ever imagined. I had built my life without them, and I would continue to live it on my own terms. Abandoned by her family at 14, she had no choice but to forge her own path, facing life's challenges alone. 16 years later, just as she's built a life of strength and independence, her family suddenly returns, this time seeking her help. Faced with the parents and brother who left her behind, she must confront years of unanswered questions, unresolved pain, and an unspoken request for forgiveness. But after a lifetime of self-reliance, will she open the door to those who shut her out? Or is this the final chapter in a family story already rewritten by betrayal?